guys, welcome to our new episode of BrainDead, a interesting episode, something totally different than what we've had in recent weeks,
right?
or let alone this entire season.
We had to change up the music for y'all.
And it's sad. We got our Poison on here, with his classic rock, and every rose has its thorn. It was a sad episode. Truly.
For me, at least.
Yeah, definitely for me, because I'm totally over this show after this episode.
Oh, Lacretia.
Oh, no,
She's so,
Laurels.
not about this episode.
Yeah.
But
hopefully next week we'll bring her back.
Yeah.
hopefully.
Luckily, I'll be in Canada.
Oh, God, you're not even going to be here for next week. But we've got a lot of varied opinions on this episode. Episode number 109, Taking on Water, How Leaks in D.C. are Discovered and Patched. We've got a lot of opinions coming up, but we can start out. I am Kevin Ellis. I will be hosting this contentious episode this evening. You can find me on Twitter at @TheKevinEllis or on Instagram at KevinEllis25. Courtney Henderson.
That's me. You can find me on Instagram or Twitter at Cohen, Couhen.
And of course, I'm Lacretia Lyon, guys, and you can always find me at LACRETIALYON anywhere on the internet, since there is only one.
Well, apart from our Poison soundtrack going right now, we had a great intro by Jonathan Colton. We finally we got a little cameo of
Love
the guy
that.
who's been introducing every episode this entire season, and it's been brilliant. I love what he's done every single week to get us amped for the new episode.
Yeah, I love that part of the episode.
Even
it's
this
so fun.
week.
Yeah, even this week, I will say I'll give Jonathan credit. That was wonderful. I like that he popped up, so we know what he looks like, because this is a fun part of the episode.
It was funny because I was talking to a coworker of mine who actually knew about some of Jonathan Colton's material prior to even him doing BrainDead. But if you ever want to check him out, I guess he has a website with some
His
pretty
own
good
stuff?
his own stuff.
This is his own stuff, obviously, but it's
right.
hired to be very
Contractual.
specific. Yeah. Very specific content.
Exactly. So, check him out online. I'm sure he's got some pretty good stuff. So this episode started out with where it left off. We've got room SRB 54, which is, as we find out, a war room for Red. But at first, there's a little bit of ambiguity. We don't really know what this room is, but Luke even gets involved, calls on over this woman named Judy, does not even know that SRB 54 exists.
I think she knows it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
That was kind of the vibe I was getting, the way, at least the way Luke played it, because obviously we only saw his half of the conversation.
Right.
Don Pickle, I want to start with Don Pickle, who was a legislative aide and then self-promoted himself to legislative director.
I love that.
I'm pretty sure his only job there is to stand at the door and answer it.
Right.
And then to not let whoever's on the other side of it in.
And he was played by Jacob Pitts, who, if you guys are big Justified fans like myself, he was a big part of that show at one point, as well as his Sex and the City. He was Sam Jones. Not to be confused with Samantha Jones, but
right.
They do get freaky.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah.
I mean, for a guy who's only watched a couple episodes of Sex and the City. But, so there's a little bit at the beginning of that, but then we had the security leak, which became a huge issue.
Right.
And so the CIA briefing that took place last episode, where Red, Luke, Ella were all involved. This gets out to the press, and it appears that they're all turning on Red, at least in the press. They at least are blaming him for it initially.
He's the only one that spoke out about it.
Exactly.
So that's where
what the press is thinking.
And I mean, it seems like they're not necessarily blaming him for leaking it, but they're blaming him for trying to promote war and get the American public to imply, and they're mad at him for implying to the American public that we ought to go to war because there's evidence saying so, when obviously those of them that were in the briefing got a very different
and he was
rundown of the facts. Yeah.
Exactly. He was implying that the Syrians were involved, or at least there was something big in this meeting, but then the leak happened and the truth came out. Nothing is happening, so he's just spitting propaganda, as he always does. But he brings on Ashley Cook, who is a special investigator, and she initially wants to start looking at Luke Healy, but Red points out that she should actually focus on Laurel as well. And do you think at that point Gareth was aware that he was putting Gareth in an awkward position?
100%.
Oh, I think he is. Yeah, he knows there's something going
Because
on.
he didn't have Gareth leave the room. He wanted Gareth to hear it. And he basically told him that you have to use your relationship with Laurel to help the Oppo research.
Right.
I mean,
And he doesn't.
like, you can help her with that.
He doesn't at all.
Well, yes and no, because he sets the record straight.
He doesn't,
You know what I mean?
He
Like,
doesn't do anything to help Red's cause.
No.
I guess he's not really helping in that sense.
But Oppo research, I mean, they're looking for dirt, but you don't want to put something out there that's a lie either.
Right.
So I don't know.
I mean, everything that turns out to not be a lie was for his own benefit.
Oh,
But
yeah.
we'll get to that
Absolutely,
later.
absolutely.
So we've got a committee meeting takes place, and Ella, at some point, turns on Luke. And she decides to nominate Lawrence Bach as the special prosecutor into the league.
That's after we see Ella and Red, right?
This is after we see Ella and Red together?
Yes.
What are we talking?
Oh, maybe I'm thinking of
Last
last
episode.
episode.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Sorry.
Yes.
So-
Well,
Bug
but
sex.
it is relevant in
'Cause-
that meeting that
You see that they're kind of on
what
the
do we
same
call it?
team.
yeah, they're on the same
Like
team.
in a weird
Bug
way.
sex sort of way.
Yeah.
she,
Literally bug sick.
Yeah.
Not love sick, bug sick.
Yeah.
Sort of way.
she's helping that cause now, and she's not really for the Democratic cause. It's more so for
The bug cause.
Yeah, we were on the same
Jinx.
page there. So, has Ella, in your opinion, fully turned on Luke, or at least has she fully turned on her party?
No.
You don't.
I don't think so. I don't think she's turning against anything as much as she's turning or changing what she's for. Because I think she would absolutely 100% side with Luke on something if it was in favor of the bug cause.
I look at her comment, poor Luke, we're playing a different game now. And I look at that comment, and I saw somebody who was telling Luke in oh so many words, there's something bigger going on, and
Yeah.
you're not a part of it. Or
Yeah, which
you're
I
not
think-
going to stand in the way.
Yeah.
Which I think is true, but I don't think that it's her necessarily turning her back on her party specifically. Because I think that if she completely became a conservative, she has no influence anymore in politics. I mean, she's a very influential, highly regarded Democrat.
True.
Yeah,
You know,
we see how
so-
that, toting different party lines or, wavering doesn't go well with people. So,
Right. I mean, and they sided together on picking a special prosecutor that kind of, it sounded like, has a very even-keeled bipartisanship, if you will, as far as both parties respect him and the work that he did
Right.
when he was in Congress.
And he's given a $2 million budget to find out what this
Which-
problem is.
Sounds
pretty
ridiculous.
ridiculous,
I mean, I don't
considering.
know how, I don't know how budgets work for those kinds of things, so I don't know if that's pretty standard or if they're making a statement that I don't know. It's got to be ridiculous. $2 million. There's 4 people that could have leaked.
Yeah,
I mean, you have a sit down with all 4 of them, and
talk it out. But at
Yeah.
what point in time, at least at first, I was a little unsure of whether or not Lawrence Bach was actually infected. And turns out I don't think he was.
Yeah, I
But
don't
at
think he
first,
was.
did you believe he was? Because I was in a position where I was contemplating what the motivation was for Ella and then Red to second the fact that Lawrence should be brought on. So it just seemed a little bizarre. But as you pointed out, it could have been just as he was a trusted senator, or former senator.
I think I didn't think he was infected. I mean, at no point watching it did I think that. I thought that he, as it would appear, why would you think it was somebody besides Luke that leaked the information?
Yeah.
So I think that he was trying to help him because he didn't have to tell him that he was going to meet with him and his sister the next day at noon and 3 o'clock and to have a lawyer, he didn't have to do it. He could have just showed up and spouted off his questions and whatnot without a lawyer present, and he didn't do that.
This is true. This is
So-
true. Well, we have Gareth having his first meeting of many with Laurel in this episode, and it takes place at the planetarium.
Oh, right.
The first visit to the planetarium.
And you pronounce the T?
Huh?
In South Park, you have to say planetarium.
I did not
Yeah.
see that. How recent is that episode?
It's pretty old.
Really? I missed that one. Well, good call.
Yeah.
She got all the references of other shows
Yep.
tonight. She's trying to talk about any show but this show tonight.
I mean, I'm really trying, guys. I'm trying to be positive.
We'll get to the negativity that Lacretia
Yeah.
wants to throw upon us. But so
I'm trying to load it. I'm squeezing.
so what did you think about the planetary sex talk that we got from the two of them in that moment?
That part was actually adorable and sweet. And, if you've seen a lot of shows like 70s Show and things like that, the planetarium is like a sexy place,
Your thought about them being the only people at the Smithsonian Planetarium? I was both times nobody else was there.
I like nerd
But
stuff, and it's not that popular.
I was
can
going to
see
say,
that.
it's one of those things, though. I mean, I see your point.
I mean, I see
That-
more people at the Griffith Observatory here in Los Angeles.
That's an amazing
Yeah.
place, though. Like,
And
oh,
it's
It's
free.
the Smithsonian.
yeah.
Yeah, but it's like the
Yeah.
middle of a day on a weekday.
I'm just saying. It's
And that's a
little
show,
unrealistic.
it's what, like a 12-minute video that like plays on a loop.
True.
So, but I see your point, and that's just one of those. It's television.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They get to have it their way.
Well, so Ashley and Gareth end up meeting up later on, and Ashley brings to him some information that really turns the tide of this episode and the show in general, and that's Laurel's sexual history, which was significantly larger than Luke's.
Yeah.
2 files worth, and
Well, one was just the backup.
one was the backup to it.
Still.
The explanation of her dirty deeds, as
Exactly.
we say.
Which, realistically
Yeah.
speaking, I mean, is it that easy to dig up that type of dirt?
I think
Probably.
no
There's this-
way.
I don't know. The internet is pretty handy, and the thing is most people at some point leave some evidence somewhere, whether it's definitive or not. It's
I
just a matter of
completely disagree.
Oh,
Do
I
you
know.
think that I could go on the internet, or I could hire somebody to go on the internet and find out about every person you've been with?
No, but that's because I'm really good at hiding things.
Yeah, but that's
Laurel-
my point.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't even think you have to be good at hiding things.
No.
Yeah.
I think that it was. I think it was a little far fetched.
No.
24 different people.
Granted,
24
yeah.
stories on the daughter of a former senator
See-
and then brother. It just doesn't seem realistic to bring in that short amount of time if it had already been like
Well, and
constructed. That's
some of it,
yeah.
but some of it may have been because
some of it may have been,
they're
but-
trying, because when her dad was a senator, I'm sure they're keeping track of
what's
all of
happening
that
with the
kind of
kids.
stuff,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah, and that is the thing, is like, say someone like Laurel, whose dad is in that position, has been in there for a while, ideally speaking, that they know more about them than they would
Mm-hmm.
know about Joe Schmo.
True.
And,
Right.
and that really is a lot of it too, is there are people that is their job, is to know that stuff and keep it under wraps. So
Right. And
that's the thing.
Some of it could
Yeah.
have come from like her side. You know what I mean? Because
No.
this, like, her dad's team, it's their job to know. You know what I mean?
no.
And so it could have, but nonetheless, it was a little extreme.
Yeah.
And I thought it was also very, I didn't like that it was for both of them. Like, it was such a sex heavy Oppo research
Yeah.
scenario.
Very
Like,
s-
the
very
only information she could come back with on either of them was who they've slept with.
Yeah. And as Red even pointed out, it's old
Yeah.
news. It's
And,
not
like,
even
who
stuff
Yeah,
that's
with
been
Luke,
really.
for sure.
Who
yeah.
cares who Laurel's sleeping with?
Oh, exactly.
I mean, really.
Although,
But
who they
besides-
reveal it possibly was is a
Besides
pretty
Gareth,
yeah.
Gareth is the only one that cares
Okay.
about who she's sleeping with,
So if you were
or
in,
not sleeping with.
well, yeah. So if you're in Garrett's position, and I know that he wants to help out Laurel and doesn't want her to be in a position where she is put in the public eye in a truly negative light, because he cares
Whether
for her,
it's true or not.
whether it's true or
Yeah.
not. But if you're in his position, would you look at the file?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I was a little sad that he did look, because he sits there and he thinks about it, and I'm like, they're gonna cut, like they're gonna end scene, and he's not gonna look, and he's gonna tell. I thought he was gonna tell her that he had it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that he was gonna basically say like, do you, because I think he kind of has to look at it for his job. Like, he has to look at it whether he wants to or not.
Right.
But I kind of thought in that moment, as he kind of like sat back and like stared at it, that he was going to go to her first and kind of say, hey, I got to look at this. Can we just have this conversation so there's no surprises?
Well.
And then, and
the
then
first one,
leave it to her to kind of
fill it in. But...
Right. Or say, I don't, just to kind of have the dialogue, because I feel like it's a lot less of a defensive conversation when he doesn't know anything yet. Whereas both times he went to her, he went and gave leading questions to try to get the information out, or just flat out asked.
Right.
And
that's so the first thing that he brings to her attention, at least that he knew about, is the fact that she slept with a former professor, a former poli-sci professor, Colin Hankey. And it was stated, at least in the file, that she got pregnant and had an abortion. And as a conservative legislative aide, or chief of staff, I should say, he cared to some degree.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, they played after that, and it turns out it wasn't, at least in his mind, it wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah, and
he did not hold her to it. In fact, he actually gave a very loving kiss. It was he said it was all right, and it turns out it didn't even happen in the first place. Yeah. But then they played the "What's Your Number" game, and things went awry very, very quickly.
At least he didn't run into a pole with his car like Pacey did on Dawson's Creek when Aubrey revealed her
Literally
number.
any show, but the show.
Because it's just.
I was a little disappointed that he didn't throw out a number.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm guessing is his is more reasonable, is why.
I think his is a little bit less than what he thinks is reasonable.
Yeah.
And it's two ways. I think
makes him hotter though.
I think it's one of those where it's embarrassing because it's so much lower on one hand, but it's also like, I know if I say I've been with 4 people, it's gonna be like she's gonna feel horrible about herself,
right? Potentially,
or just think that you say, well, 4, that there's an instant judgment on the fact that you've been with 24.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, even though all he's really saying is, I've only chosen to have sex with 4 people. You know what I mean?
And he says, "Do summers count?"
Yeah.
And at first, I totally thought that was like a Playboy, like that was gonna amp his number up. And then I realized, no, that it's probably when like he has numbers. He's like, I'm trying to amp this up to like get to a less embarrassing number to get it up there a little bit more.
It was cute, but she does not take this the right way.
Yeah.
What do you think went wrong in that regard?
Well, this is what I feel like, and this was my issue with this entire episode. It almost feels like it was written by an entirely different person. Just the whole perspective of everyone just seemed really off, especially Laurel. And that's what I say, is her character just acted like, she was right this whole time. And Laurel has been pretty well, like, open to the idea that maybe sometimes she's wrong. She likes to learn things. So in this instance, to be so defensive of herself was really kind of sad and not like the character, when it's just like, honestly, you should be like, oh, well, that's great, Gareth, sorry, but, I had fun in college or stuff like that, which would have been understandable. But the fact that she gets so upset over this, when this information has probably been looked up before because of your dad, your brother, that's what people do. It's just like, I didn't understand her point of view, and that's where I have an issue.
She cares about Gareth, and she knows that this could affect them. And I think when she came the second time, or when he came back the second time and asked about the Michael Moore situation, it was more because they'd already had the apology, I'm an idiot, the past is the past. And here he was 1 day later or 2 days later bringing up the past again. It's like, I thought we laid this to rest. I thought we had this conversation. And now we're having it again, and you're judging me.
But in Gareth's defense, especially when he brings up, he who shall not be named, Michael Moore, the fact that she doesn't answer his question when he's like, what if it was me with Ann Coulter? I mean, that's sort of the thing, is she's being very hypocritical, and again, I can't understand her point of view. Because, yeah, it's like, okay, so, for example, I'm Jewish, and someone I know has sex with Hitler. That's going to be a big issue, and no offense, but that's sort of how, if I'm in Gareth's position, and she supposedly had sex with Michael Moore, that's how I see it, you know?
Okay.
Yeah, and it's sort of like... That's a pretty, like, there's certain people that are off limits for certain viewpoints.
But he's a liberal, she's a liberal.
Yeah.
So it's not the same thing as, like, a Jewish person and
No,
Hitler.
he is conservative. He is conservative. He's part of the Republican Party.
Well, she just means Michael Moore.
Oh, Michael Moore. I thought we were talking
I'm just saying, like...
I'm like, do you know
I thought
who
we were
Michael
talking
Moore
Gareth.
is? No. That's what I'm saying. Like,
Okay.
so I'm saying it was two liberals.
Yeah.
But
It'd be
Well,
like...
okay.
It'd be
still.
like being Jewish and... Well, we don't have to talk about that.
Yeah,
but
I'm just saying, like, there's so many things that you know, again, there are certain people that are just off limits. Like,
okay.
If someone had sex with Amy Brenneman to me, I literally think she's, like, the worst person ever. I don't know why, but it's just one of those things. It's like, well, I don't know.
So it was I viewed it as just a far-fetched person to throw out there.
Yeah.
Because there are a fair amount of people who are repulsed by Michael Moore. A fair amount of people.
That's fair enough. That's fair to say.
And this isn't just by his political views, but I mean physically who he is. Sometimes some people just make fun of him on South Park. It's like this is well documented that he is a person that people make fun of for these type of things. But he played up the joke. He actually was on a cameo on this show. He played it up. They got him on the show. I thought it was hilarious. It was a little self-deprecating.
Yeah.
He was in on the joke. I think that it was funny. So I'm past the Michael Moore bit.
Yeah, I think it was a lot less a political statement of any kind and more it was a reason or a way to get the relationship between Gareth and Laurel like to another level.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Because I think the only issue between them was the fact that he brought up the past after they said, we're not bringing up the past.
Right.
It wouldn't have mattered what name or who it was. And it could have, you know what I mean? It wasn't that it was Michael Moore. It was that, for her, it was that you're bringing up the past again, you know?
And I agree that...
And when it's Michael Moore.
And when it's Michael Moore.
Yeah.
But I agree with you, Lacretia, in some respect, in that there was something disjointed about her character, Laurel's character in this episode, but I also do attribute it to just simply, I don't think that there was a normal awareness of how relationships and how people interact. I just felt that there was something off because in this instance, in real life, let's just say, I don't think that there's any point in time where Laurel would have not just said, this is ridiculous, because it's Michael Moore.
And that's the thing.
It's ridiculous.
Like, the fact that she wanted to make it about a statement, and that's what I say, is like, oh no, I'm just really going to call him out, going to drag him on for a while. And I was just like, that's not in this character.
Right.
You would have been honest from the get-go.
I totally disagree with both of you.
Okay,
100%.
Why?
Because it's not about the politics. You have to. It's about the feelings and the emotion. 100%.
Well, that's all I'm citing.
And I'm
just citing the emotion.
She's trying to say, screw you. If you really care that much about my past, then this isn't gonna work. And so you can have your little Michael Moore thought or whatever that is about me and my past, and you can just eat that up because I'm done.
But I just think that that's wrong. I don't know. If I was with a girl like that, it would not. That just is not fair to me.
But
No, I don't agree.
What if she accused you of sleeping with Michael Moore?
I would tell her she's ridiculous. Like, what are you talking about?
That's what she was doing.
No, she never denied it.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
That is my point. By not denying it, it's like, yeah, I slept with him. Like, for her, it's like, if you're willing to believe that to the point that you're going to bring it to me, then you're going to have to eat that. Like, you have to swallow that.
Yeah, I know that
You
that's
get what
a
I'm
lot
saying?
of...
I get it.
That is what a girl would do.
No, I
that
do
is
get...
100% what a girl would do, and I think it's 100%.
I know.
I hate it.
Here's
That
the
is
thing,
so Laurel, because it's
I'm-
just a girl thing.
Okay,
I'm not
and
saying
girl
it's
thing.
right.
I
just
have
think
a
stupid.
vagina too, and I know sometimes it's questionable. But, like, seriously, guys, this is stuff that annoys me about other women. Is like, you want to play the game, but you can't hack it. Sorry. So,
I just
and
think
that's
that
the
it was...
thing is like if he did the same thing, he would be the worst person in the world. But Laurel does that, and we're supposed to accept that she's like some decent human being now. No, she is freaking like pulling him along just because that's what she wants to do. And it's like, oh, how dare you question my numbers? You know what? Yeah, I'm sorry. He has every right to question, especially when it's someone who he finds so repulsive. And to be honest, it's not even about politics. It's about look at him. Like seriously, you'd have sex with that just because you're a liberal too? That's pathetic. And the fact that she just kept on and on about going with it, it's just like that's how you want to present yourself? Like, and that's the thing is
feel
as
like
a
she
woman,
went
Laurel
on and
offended
on,
me.
though.
No, and she just kept
I mean,
pulling him up.
but it
You
wasn't
know?
like she continued to
Yeah.
like progress the lie.
Yeah.
She just didn't deny it.
True.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But it's still
I
like
totally get
so
that.
Yeah.
like I don't
well,
I think it was a very normal way
Yeah.
to react and a very normal thing to have done it.
I sympathize
I
with
hate that
Gareth.
it's normal though. It's
No,
like, oh my
and,
god.
And I'm not speaking at
Yeah.
all to
I know.
to whether
I totally
it's
know.
right or not.
Right.
I'm just saying that is 100%, I think, how a lot of women would behave.
And that's the sad part is like that's supposed to and we're supposed to be supporting that as feminist behavior because how dare he shame her for who she had sex with, what her number is. But at the same time, it's wrong whether you look at it or not, because she could have had sex with 24 guys as long as they weren't Michael Moore. He was okay with it, he was a little like defensive. But yeah, someone like that who just literally is the opposite of how he believes, and whether you're left, right, libertarian, who really supports someone like that is so in your face and presents opinions as facts, things like that, and just honestly looks like Michael Moore. I mean, not to call anything about that, but
Well, before we get too political,
yeah, I know.
I agree. I think that Michael
Yeah.
Moore as the person that they
Yeah.
selected was the reason, and I think that for her not to sympathize with the fact that it mattered to Gareth, he didn't really care about the number.
It had been Joe Biden
Right.
or something.
It was
he
just
would've
the
been
fact
okay
that it
with
was Michael
Yeah.
Moore, and it's like it meant something to him, and the fact that she was not picking up on that, I didn't think that was right.
Yeah, it was crappy.
But
I think she totally knew. I think she didn't see that it meant something to him. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what bothered her. Because it's like, we said the past doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're telling me the past does.
She could have sex
That's
with,
what she's mad about.
with
because
Barack, Biden, anybody else, and he probably would have been somewhat understanding. But being that it's
But-
Michael Moore is like...
Right, but it's
Yeah.
one of those where how upset would you be if you're dating somebody and they say, all right, we're throwing out the past, we're not talking numbers, we're not talking names.
I agree.
And then they come and bring that
You have
back
a
in
fair
your
point.
face.
You have a fair point.
Especially when it's Michael Moore and it's not true.
It
You know
was
what I
far-fetched.
mean?
It was
Like,
just
yeah.
ridiculous
So
and
it's,
far-fetched.
so and I mean, I feel for him. Like I totally am
Yeah,
with you
that's
when it
gross.
comes to there would be certain people that it would be harder to accept that you're dating somebody that's been with X, Y, or Z, than other people. You know,
Yes.
like if I dated somebody that had been with Brad Pitt, not as big of an issue as somebody that's been with Michael Moore.
No, that's gross.
You know what I mean? So I get that. I get where he's coming from, and I don't think it's wrong of him to question the judgment of the person he's dating if she's decided that was an okay idea at one point. But I think like she goes along with it because she's like, I was 25 and I was totally sober.
Yeah, the fact that
You know
she
what I
says
mean?
that
Like,
is like,
so that's
great.
where I'm just like, the fact that he didn't pick up on any of that as well, it's just the intent of that was not to be as big of a deal as far as like the plot and like getting people to not want to watch the show anymore. I think it was to get them to this point where there's something else in the storyline that clearly has to happen besides their love story.
Right.
Because of the way that ends up by the end of the episode is now they're on a break.
And Starman934, who's joining us in the chat room, as they always do, so thank you, Starman, but pointed out that could Red have set up Gareth and Laurel for a breakup? Was this intentional? Did he know that this was going to happen?
Ooh,
yeah, because like to be honest, if I'm a strategist and I'm like, wow, how could we tank this? I would have never thought of Michael Moore sex, but if you're thinking about the worst possible thing that could happen, that's pretty much on my agenda.
I have mixed feelings because on one hand, I totally agree.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it's like, but that's kind of your mole, potentially. Having Gareth date her and potentially get the inside scoop. You know what I mean? I
that's
could
how
see
they're
Red.
getting stuff.
I could see Red kind of saying like, "Hey, like, yeah, keep dating her," and not wanting to break them up because Gareth can get information from that side of things potentially.
Oh,
but
I agree.
I also don't really know. It's not very clear how much Red knows about their relationship because they're not like making out and kissing in public. I mean, yes, they're obviously seen together in public, but they pseudo work together because of the nature of what they do and being on Capitol Hill. So obviously he knows there's some sort of rapport and relationship there. Does he know that it's romantic? I don't know. That's not clear to this point. Do the bugs in some way give him that information? You know, does he know more because of the people around and what they see and know? You know, that's not clear at this point. So I'm going to go with no. I don't think it was a setup to break them up.
It could.
I think it's collateral damage.
Could had it have been a setup to at least sabotage the nature of their relationship and make him more of a mole, somebody that is more on his side, knowing that possibly Gareth has been feeding the opposite information, and for him to not destroy, like, you know, knock her off completely, have him be more useful to him, because clearly, as he pointed out earlier, or later in the episode, I should say, Red does not want Gareth to know anything about room SRB 54. He wants him out of that.
Well, and just think about it. So Gareth is believing Laurel because in his mind, she is this actual intelligent human being who makes good decisions. While their politics may not always line up, they're kind of on the same wavelength. How better than to derail that is, you know, having sex with Michael Moore and showing poor judgment, you know, really, and that's going to change his opinion of her. So therefore, he's no longer going to give her information, and then some, and that sort of thing. Yeah.
I don't think Red knew any of that. I don't think any of that was ever presented to Red. You know what I mean?
I'm just not sure. I'm not sure.
I don't think Red was trying to sabotage them because he completely knocked. Like, there is no relationship between Laurel and Gareth now. Like, there is no sharing of information. There's nothing that he's going to get from her now that they're on a break.
But the interesting thing, and while I'm reluctant to agree with Starman's, question, I do think that there is a possibility, and only because when Ashley brought this information to Red and Gareth that she had slept with Michael Moore, it was said that they had 3 witnesses that corroborated this story, and it seemed like a shut case, like done. She slept with Michael Moore, and now all of a sudden, it was a rumor, and that just seems really bizarre. It was just gossip. That doesn't happen, at least for somebody as informed as Ashley.
Well, to me, it's just like, I feel like they did that just to be like, yeah, Gareth, you messed up. Like, sort of a backhanded thing. Like, we're going to tell you, 3 witnesses confirm this because we know you're going to run asking her. And now that the damage is done, you know, it was just a rumor.
But again, that's supporting this theory that it could have been sabotage to begin with. So, that's what
I don't think it was sabotage. But
I think it's possible. I think it's possible.
It's possible, but
I just don't see the end game. I don't see the end game.
I don't think that that's what happened.
What else happened in this episode?
I know.
I have to say, as much as you didn't like the Michael Moore edition, I have to say, I like Michael Moore a little bit more for his cameo in this episode. You have to respect the fact that he took it upon himself to take part in this cameo and to make fun of himself in that regard. I think that it was funny. So.
Yeah, to me, it's just, using him, whether it's funny or not and tongue-in-cheek, it's just a matter of, that's someone who's so polarizing.
He's very polarizing.
Again, if you use someone like Rush Limbaugh or Ann Coulter or something like that on the other side, you have to understand is even using them to a little bit, even making fun of themselves, is going to polarize your small shrinking audience as it is. And that's the sad part, is like, okay, like it really could have been funny, especially if you incorporated more of it, you know, ha ha ha. But it was just a matter of using that one person, when honestly Joe Biden would have been funny, and then we would totally would have been like, all right.
But it had to be somebody that she
Yeah.
could have met.
Yeah.
And they're in the same
Yeah.
world of film. So, but, and I don't.
Exactly. There was a realistic aspect.
I don't
yeah.
think that. I think they weren't trying to be like Michael Moore's disgusting.
No.
Because I don't think a lot of
I don't think
liberals
that was their
necessarily think
purpose.
that. No, that's
No.
what I'm saying. But of course, the most liberal person, you know what I mean, like she's ever been with or dated or known, Gareth, is gonna be disgusted at the thought of her being with somebody so liberal. And so Michael Moore, I mean, so I think it was less about a stance on him as an actual person and like a very conservative person's perspective on him. Because like you said, because they do say Ann Coulter, and they do give kind of like try to give the, you know, well, if I said these really conservative names, you're gonna be grossed out because of their ideas. Yeah.
And that was the problem I had, is like she never admitted to like, yes, that's true, and because it wasn't ever presented. And then that's what I say is like, it's kind of hard to have that sort of middle of the aisle at this point, when it's just like, okay, we're gonna go over here, and we're not really gonna represent this over here in as far as we did on this show with, say, Michael Moore. And, you know, not that I expect Gareth to bang Ann Coulter in the next episode, but if so, that would make a lot more sense.
I just don't view it as like that type of political move on the show's part. I just don't see it as such. I think it was just a throw in. They were throwing a character or a person out there that was just
feasible, that she could have met. And
and I'm sure that they had an in getting Michael Moore to at least come, like somebody on the show. Maybe it's not the Kings. Maybe somebody just knew Michael Moore from you know, socially, to bring him onto the show. So that. James Carville would have been interesting too.
Yeah, see, James Carville is a really interesting person, and that would have been.
But Michael Moore is an interesting person, Lacretia. He might be polarizing, but he's interesting.
Not really. I mean, like,
yes, he is.
I mean,
he won an Academy
he's
Award.
Someone that I literally like. If they're talking, like, I just turned it off. And,
but that's you.
Yeah.
Like, so it's
and his like
subjective.
relevance is pretty much lost. Like, 'cause how many people right now, like, especially with Trump going on, why is he not doing anything? That's why I say, like, that's sort of an old.
Well,
reference.
he might be.
Yeah.
Oh, he
I
has.
mean,
he has. I will not
So,
speak to that personally, but I have
yeah.
seen Facebook posts where
But yeah.
I know Michael Moore has been involved.
Yeah,
so he
major
has.
media, though, is not reporting him because he's really not relevant. And I wouldn't say, like, James Carville is at least somebody I can respect.
Well, that's because he's in show business. He's not necessarily a politician or in the political, you know,
but I mean, we
commentary.
report on what Matt Damon thinks of, you know, politics or things like that. So, like,
on occasion.
The
It's not like he has a
news,
voice,
whatever.
though.
Yeah. But yeah.
It just happens. So when it's in the news, when he does say something, it'll become news, but it's not necessarily somebody who's out always.
Right.
So, anywho.
Let's talk about Lawrence Bach.
Lawrence ends up, I mean, it gets to the point where there's meetings between Luke and Lawrence. They're on the, you know, they're in the, you know, one of the gardens, and he brings the blueprints that Gareth had.
I loved the trickery.
There was some great stuff.
I
in there.
loved that.
The Wi-Fi shutdown was
amazing.
well played, and it's taking a little bit of contemporary like knowledge, just like millennial knowledge. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, agreed. Totally agreed.
And so he has these blueprints, and it turns out that at least what Red is doing is he's planning on starting up these Syrian internment camps. Or at least that's what's theorized.
Yeah.
More than anything, it's probably going to be human internment camps.
Probably.
So we have
maybe
that to
starting with Syrians, but
maybe starting with Syrians, but then turning just into humans in general.
Yeah.
While the bugs rule the world, or at least America.
I did. I loved that, the whole trickery, and even with Laurel when he didn't tell her the specifics of it. Got around Red completely in this whole situation, you know, and just I was like, Gareth for the win. Love that.
Yeah, Gareth had a good moment.
But the other thing I loved too was that in him giving that to Laurel and Laurel being able to give that to Luke to give to Lawrence with this whole leaking thing, I love that there was now something of substance besides these space bugs, you know, to go to him and say, look, like, there is something worth investigating besides the leak. Like, yes, we need to figure out who leaked it, but there's way more to this than that, and here's proof of it.
Right.
So look, you know, because Judy's saying that this room doesn't exist. Now there's these blueprints for what looks like these camps, a countdown clock for 38 days and 12 hours and blah, blah, blah. I mean...
And did you notice it was September 12th?
Yes. Yes. When they said, I'm like, that's no accident. But, you know, so it was just very interesting that now there's something that Luke can kind of fight for or fight against, if you will, with Red, besides just the talk of these bugs that could, you know, politically ruin him long term.
Well, Red Red then meets with Laurels in his own office.
In this expansion of the investigation.
And at some point in time, he rhetorically asks Red if he would just shoot him then.
Yeah, if we're at war and I'm the enemy, then why don't you just shoot me in the head?
Well,
with
pulls out
no hesitation.
That's true. And shoots him, clocks him right there. I mean, I have to say, it was one of the more, as we pointed out earlier, Red has just been one of those solid, if not the most solid, most consistent character.
Yeah, Tony Shalhoub is fantastic.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, he has been stellar this season. And so then the intern walks in.
Jed. Which I love that there's now a new intern. It's Jed the intern.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Red... well, he sends him off to go get, cloth or whatever. Eats the brains off of the walls.
So gross.
What did you make of that?
I thought that was so funny, and I'm like, honestly, as I said, while we were watching it, I'd rather eat the brains off the walls than have sex with Michael Moore any day. Like, I was like, as far as gross factor, I'm like,
yeah. Okay, Lacretia, if they would have done Rush Limbaugh, would you have laughed?
No, to be honest, I'm like, okay, like just thinking about how horrible because he's pretty much the equal. Yeah. It's like they're both pretty awful. Like I
would have cracked up. I would have died.
It's funny, like either way, to an extent. But I was just like, oh my god, like you have to think of like the most disgusting people on the planet.
But that's the point.
Yeah, that is the point. That is the point. And again, the fact that Michael Moore was in on it, that's hilarious to me. And if Rush Limbaugh would have been on it, I would have died.
Yeah. But he wasn't.
He wasn't. Though, I would die thinking about that. Anyway, we're getting on so many tangents this episode.
I thought, so as far as like the him eating the brain, the one little like taste wasn't like jarring to me at all, as far as it's like, okay, to me this is like the bug or the queen bee talking, because he says this is one of the greatest minds in American history, or however he worded that, and I'm like, he means that sort of literally and figuratively, like the greatest minds, like intellectually and maybe also literally to taste.
Yep.
Like one of the greatest minds, and so I thought that was kind of a clever play on it. And then when he goes to scrape it and like puts the note like Reds do not eat, I'm like, okay, this is like, that was like a little like ooh for me,
gross
like
moment,
a little too much.
Nice little addition.
But yeah, it's clearly, I feel like they're gonna knock on his head real soon, and it's gonna be hollow like we've seen with other characters.
Right. And as we close out the episode, Laurel is surprised by Gareth in her office, and he has a little gift for her, but he is turned away. Did you expect this happening?
I did not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not to this extent. I mean, I thought it would be more than just like an apology. I'm an idiot. I'm sorry. To write this one, because it's like, well, that worked last time. Like, this is a bigger situation, because I totally get that, him coming back crawling, tail between his legs, however you want to say it.
He bought a Michael Moore DVD. You know how much he had to like sacrifice to do that?
Yeah, like,
and that's the thing.
Crow,
she's a selfish bee for not like upping that.
At least like, acknowledging, but so the total break. I mean, but she's sad about it too.
And that's what I wanted to ask you guys. Do you think that she is?
I think it was genuine.
Okay.
I think she's sad, but it's just, again, like I say, this whole 180 with their character, it's just like, okay, you either need to sell me that Laurel's got brain bugs or what? Because, yeah, this, you know, he bought a frickin' Michael Moore DVD, honey. He spent money on liberal propaganda.
But he said this made me think of you, so like that could definitely go one of two ways. And I know it was meant to be more like I really am sorry, like so sorry that I will watch a Michael Moore DVD that I bought with my own money.
Yep. I sense that there was her excuses to why they don't work. I feel like we needed to hear like you should have trusted me. That's all. Like if she said something like that, or not even not trust, because she didn't deny it, but to acknowledge that
she said we're just too different.
That's, I mean,
because maybe
if she's gone off the wall like
but
this,
maybe she didn't sleep with Michael Moore because she said she doesn't. Like we know that's true, but maybe she would have.
Well, I'm having a hard time articulating my thought on this.
You know what I'm saying? Like to her, sleeping with Michael Moore is not as gross as it is to Gareth.
Or the rest of America. Like 83% of Americans think that that's disgusting. I just did a poll.
In your head?
Yeah, sure, on the internet, whatever.
Subjective.
Twitter. That should be.
You're now doing exactly what you hate about Michael Moore.
Yeah, I'm doing
presenting
it as a joke.
Opinion as fact.
Yeah, that's the thing, is I'm clearly meaning this as a joke, everyone. Whether this is true fact or not, I don't know, but it is clearly a joke, and that's the difference. Some of us are comedians. We don't call ourselves documentarians.
Oh, God. All right, before we get off the wall completely, what do you think is going to happen, or at least how many episodes is it going to take for Gareth and Laurel to reconcile?
Too many.
Too many. We've got 4 more.
Yeah.
Yep.
We got 4
Count those
more
on my
episodes.
Fingers.
4 more episodes this season. Like, how do you think this is going to play out? Because we have Rochelle and we have
TV prediction.
Oh yeah, predictions. Thank you. We have Rochelle and Gustav, who did not make this episode. So and that's maybe why this episode felt a little disjointed. We took away a little bit from the sci-fi element.
Yeah, and that's what I said was really missing. And again, like as someone who came to this because it was sci-fi, other than the Michael Moore bit, that lost me too. It's like, okay, like where are the bugs? What's going on?
That's true, because the
it
death
wasn't
we
just
see
that.
because of the bugs was like a revolver shoot. Like it was a very real way somebody is killed. Like it wasn't out there. There was nothing out there about this episode.
And the truth
Well,
is
it was
there,
outlandish that she slept with Michael Moore. That's very outlandish.
You know what I mean, though.
I know what you
mean,
mean.
the guy's not a virgin. Somebody has slept with him.
Okay, I'm not getting into that.
Let's not think
You
about that.
guys keep bringing
about this now.
You keep bringing him up.
I do keep bringing it up because it was the best part of this episode. It was just
I
fucking
don't
hilarious.
think it was.
Swearing. Okay. What was I gonna ask?
Predictions. There's a
predictions,
pregnant woman that they're implying is maybe has an infected baby in her stomach. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, that
It just feels like we don't have enough time in this season to where this next teaser feels relevant.
Yeah, it seemed very odd. I'm like, well, I don't know what's happened. Like, because this preview really just seems odd too. It's like, okay, are we going back to the sci-fi, or is this going to turn out to be?
This is definitely sci-fi.
Yeah,
this next episode is feeling sci-fi.
Definitely.
Great,
but why?
I like that.
Yeah.
But why? Yeah, what is the purpose of bringing this into the fray?
Well, that's why it's a teaser for next episode.
This is why we're trying to predict. No. This is a prediction. So I'm thinking that they're, again, we're going back to the sci-fi
Do you think
element.
the baby's infected?
I do, but how?
But just like with her dad, there was like that element of maybe not. We don't know where this is going because it
maybe
also
the
could
dad
be
is
just a
infected.
hysterical person. I don't know.
Yeah, that's
so maybe
possible.
the dad was infected, and now the baby's infected, but the mom isn't.
I'll go back to my initial question. At least I know in the next 2 episodes that they will reconcile. I think next episode they're going to be at least. I don't know this.
Okay. Well, you said I know, so
I
just
know. I've got a deep feeling in my heart.
It's a prediction.
That
So
Michael
you don't
Moore's
think
not going to be the
next
third
week,
wheel to them.
You don't think next week, but the week after, Laurel and Gareth reconcile.
I do believe so. I think that it's they need to unite, and maybe Rochelle and Gustav help out in that.
Yeah,
they get
they're
Laurel back to
adorable.
her senses because she doesn't have her friends supporting her. She's going at this alone. And
that was what was sort of a WTF moment in this episode too. Like, where is everybody?
Yeah.
I mean, we barely even saw Luke at that. Yeah.
It felt like a weird episode.
Yeah.
Hopefully things will pick up next week. I know that you're going to be gone.
Yes,
Lacretia,
I'll be in
but we'll
Canada.
have-
I will
God.
be here.
So it'll be Courtney. Courtney, where can everybody find you on social media?
Well, Instagram or Twitter at Cohen, Couhen.
And I'm Lacretia Lyon, so you guys can always find me at LACRETIALYON anywhere on the internet, since there is only one.
And I am Kevin Ellis. You can find me on Twitter at _Kevin_Ellis or Instagram at KevinEllis25. We had a very interesting episode. Thank you for joining us this week. Again, we'll be here next week with episode 110 of BrainDead. Have yourselves a nice week, guys.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.